It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. You can contact me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Our archives you can find for free at Spreaker.com. There's a chat room. You get an email notification when we put up new content. If you go there, you can find our guest today, Turbo Paul, the art hostage. We've had him on many, many times. Always has great content. He went from being an art thief to being an art reporter now and helping to recover stolen art and reporting on all the scandals and the scuttlebutt and the gossip behind all these big art cases you hear all the time. But before I introduce our guest, Turbo Paul, the art hostage, I want to direct your attention to a GoFundMe out there. It's our friend Brad Schreiber. You might remember we had Brad Schreiber on the show the first time to talk about his book about Revolution's End, about Patty Hearst. And then we had him on about Jimi Hendrix, and we had him on about music is power and social justice, all these different books about L.A. coroners he had a book about too. Anyway, it turns out our good friend there, Brad Schreiber, he's got cancer now. He's barely getting out of the hospital now, and he has to go home, but there's going to be expenses for his medication and round-the-clock help, homemade kind of help stuff there for Brad Schreiber. You can go to his GoFundMe. It's Help Brad Beat Cancer on GoFundMe. And the GoFundMe is run by his sister, Robin Martinelli. So it shouldn't be too hard to find. Help Brad Beat Cancer. You can go to my Facebook, go to my Twitter. We have all the links up there. Good old Brad Schreiber, good guy. Lung cancer. Okay, and very young guys, younger than me, guys. Okay, so younger than Turbo Paul, that's for sure. Everybody's younger than Turbo Paul. Mr. Art Hostage, Mr. Turbo Paul, are you there?
Yes, I am, Ed, and good day to you. How are you doing? Good, I hope.
Well, you know me, Art, or should I say Paul?
Yeah,
I've got my ups and downs there, but how is it? Remind the audience. So before we get into the whole thing because I know we have a lot of stuff to talk about a stolen, recovered Van Gogh that you've been talking about for years, and also too Hitler's horse that you've been talking about for years, all popped up in the news just like you predicted. But before we get into all of that, remind the audience who is Turbo Paul, the art hostage?
Well, I was a kid born on the south coast of the UK in 1964, adopted into a poor family, started dealing in art and antiques and gold age 12, right, went through till age 35 where I retired and then went to university and got a BA Honours degree and a Master's degree. During that time, I dealt in stolen art and antiques during the 1980s. When I retired and gave up that, I then become a consultant and started to specialise in stolen art recovery. And since then, I've become a social commentator, not just on art crime, but also the drug cartels and organised crime groups in Europe and Asia. And I do a daily YouTube live stream where I report daily events. So whether it's art crime or any other kind of organised crime, I speak about it. And as I say, it's just the news has broken that the Van Gogh stolen in March 2020 has been recovered, but there's no arrests, right? And the person that recovered it was the person who organised the theft of it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Hey, before we get into the whole Van Gogh story, people can go to Art Hostage on YouTube. He's a very short time. He's got over 1 million views. You can also find him on Instagram too, as well. Art Hostage Turbo Paul on Instagram, and of course Twitter at Art Hostage. You could find him there. Always has something to comment about. So, give us a story. First of all, how did this Van Gogh go missing?
Well, it all started in January 2020 when there was a meeting of the Dutch art crime cartel of Michel van Rijn, Arthur Brand, Octave Durham, who'd previously stolen 2 Van Goghs from another museum in 2002, and a career art thief called Niles Manara. And the plan was to steal a small early Van Gogh painting that was on loan to the Groningen Museum, and it didn't have very good security, only a glass door to go through. So they conspired in the January. In March, on the birthday of Van Gogh himself, Niles Manara went down to the museum and smashed through the glass door with a sledgehammer, run in, grabbed the Van Gogh, run out on the back of a motorbike and was gone. Now, Octave Durham knew that he would be under suspicion, so he, as a previous thief of Van Gogh's, made sure he was in hospital that night so he could prove he had the perfect alibi. So that is stolen at the end of March. We then move on 2 months and Arthur Brand produces proof of life photographs for the New York Times and Nina Siegel, the reporter, of the front of the Van Gogh, the back of the Van Gogh, giving all the details that would only be known to the museum. And that was proof of life published in the New York Times, but acting like a shop window. A drug dealer who was in jail facing serious drug charges of millions of dollars saw the New York Times article of the proof of life and bought on the black market via Arthur Brand the stolen Van Gogh for €400,000.
Well, let me ask a question, Paul. How does that work? And Arthur Brand is standing there holding a piece of stolen property?
Well, no, what happened was that when the Van Gogh was stolen, Octave Durham and Niles Manara, the convicted thief who stole it, which we'll get into, photographed the back of it, gave the photographs to Arthur Brand,
Gotcha.
who then passed them on to the New York Times. He wasn't holding it. It was a photograph of the Van Gogh next to the New York Times of that day, so you could tell that it was contemporary. And then there was a photograph of the back of the painting, again with another New York Times from that time. So they get published, right, and then it gets sold in the underworld to a man called Peter Roy Koch, K-O-K. Right, he is in jail waiting for, on drug charges. He buys the stolen Van Gogh via his outside contacts to use as a bargaining chip to get a lower jail sentence. So now Arthur Brand's organised the theft. He's sold it to a drug kingpin underworld in jail. He then goes to the Dutch art police and says, I can get the Van Gogh back, but this man in jail wants a lower sentence. And I want immunity to recover it, and I want to film it for my TV series. So the Minister of Justice says, no, you're playing us. We're not going to do that. We're not allowing that. So Arthur Brand goes back to Niles Manara, the thief of the Van Gogh, and says, no, we can't have a deal on that, but if you go and steal another painting that we can give to the drug kingpin to hold, we can recover the Van Gogh without any conditions, and I can film it for my TV series. So in the August, Niles Manara goes down to Leerdam and steals a national treasure called Laughing Boys, an oil painting of two boys laughing by Frans Hals, worth $15 to $20 million. So then we come back, right, and then the drug kingpin says, OK, you can have the Van Gogh back as long as I can hold the Frans Hals. So Arthur Brand goes back to the police and says, new deal, no conditions, recover the Van Gogh, but I want immunity from prosecution, right, and I don't have to say where I got the painting, so I can film it for my TV series. Again, the Minister of Justice, Ferdinand Grapperhaus, at the time said, no, you're trying to play us again, and now we got two stolen paintings out there worth $30 million. So this was September 2020. So then Niles Manara gets arrested in 2021, gets convicted of both art thefts on DNA and gets 8 years in jail. The drug dealer, Peter Roy Koch, has bought both paintings for €1 million. They're worth €30 million. He then tries to have a deal, but they say no, and he gets 12 years in jail. All of this time means that the insurance company have paid out between $25 and $30 million, $10 million on the Van Gogh and $15 million plus on the Frans Hals. The insurance company are perfectly willing to pay 20% of their claim to anyone who can recover it, as long as he's, an art detective. So Arthur Brand, last weekend, meets allegedly with some shadowy figure, and this shadowy figure turns up on his doorstep 2 days ago with the Van Gogh, and Arthur Brand videos himself with it and then calls the police and hands it back. The museum authenticates it. Now Arthur Brand will be claiming 20% of the $10 million that was paid out by the insurance company to the museum, because the museum want to pay the Van Gogh back and the insurance company want their money back. So they get 10 million back and are happy to pay 20% to Arthur Brand. Arthur Brand will now distribute the money to the thief, Niles Manara, serving 8 years, and the drug dealer, kingpin, Peter Roy Koch, serving 12 years. The next thing we'll see will be the Frans Hals recovered in the same way, and 20% of the value of that will be paid to Peter Roy Koch and to Niles Manara, the thief, and Arthur Brand. It's a blatant buyback of stolen art, which only further encourages art theft going forward.
It would appear that way. Now, what qualifies one to become an art detective that you can do this without getting in trouble? Like it would appear.
Well, you need the cooperation of law enforcement. And in the Netherlands, the Dutch Art Crime Squad have been inherently corrupt for decades. And the current head, Richard Brunswick, was number 2 to the previous Martin Finkelberg, who was top art cop for decades, okay, and they look the other way. But the problem in this case, right, and certain powerful people and a lot of people in the political circles in the Netherlands know that Arthur Brand conspired with Niles Manara and Octave Durham and Michel van Rijn to steal these 2 paintings worth 30 million. The thief, Niles Manara's in jail. The drunk kingpin who paid €1 million to secure them is doing 12 years. There is a deal has been done, Ed, behind the scenes, obviously, okay, because the Van Gogh has come back, and if the deal is not honoured, then they won't get the Frans Hals painting back. The Van Gogh has been the test balloon. But this breaks all kinds of laws. Now, although it might be in the Netherlands, the insurance companies are based in the City of London. Hiscox and all the AXA and all those insurance companies that insure art, and on Lloyd's of London. So any reward or fee paid to recover this Van Gogh, right, is an illegal act under UK law, the 2002 and 2005 Proceeds to Crime Act. So all kinds of laws have been broken. Now, all the public are getting at the moment is that Arthur Brand, an art detective, wakes up one morning and just discovers a Van Gogh worth $10 million on his doorstep. And that's it. No scrutiny, no nothing. But unless the authorities are playing the long game, Ed, unless they've recovered and allowed this one to go through, right, and then when they get Frans Hals Laughing Boys $15 million worth, they'll swoop and arrest everyone. Because if they don't, this just encourages further art theft going forward.
Now, Turbo Paul, it seems that one of the motivations of this was this drug dealer came up with, his motivation was to get a shortened sentence. Now, has that come about for him?
Now, again, it remains to be seen. He's got 12 years. Now, this was a huge kingpin. He had haulage firms in the Netherlands. When they busted him with 400 kilograms of narcotics, 2 Ferraris, Lamborghinis, all kinds of multi-million things, right? So, €1 million to him was nothing. So we invested €1 million in these 2 stolen paintings. One of them has just turned up, and Arthur Brand's trying to tell the world that the underworld allowed it to go, right, for no money or no nothing, when 2-3 years ago, when it happened, he said that it was sold for €400,000 into the underworld.
Okay, hold on a second. Now, Arthur Brand is saying on the record that he obtained this piece of art without any compensation going to anybody?
Yes, he said that the underworld decided it was more of a headache to keep this artwork, and so they handed it back to Arthur Brand free of charge, so we could hand it back to the museum and be the hero, and the insurance company get their $10 million back. But no one in the underworld wants any money or anything. You know, I mean, we're meant to be believing that. I mean, this is ridiculous.
You're right. The official story is they went to all this trouble to steal this thing in order just to say, oh my goodness, this is too much.
Yeah, and also, even if we only get it down to monetary value, the drug kingpin is doing 12 years and has lost €400,000 on this painting. Do you think he's going to give it back for nothing? Of course he's not going to. You know, and that's the problem that we got. But what Arthur Brand, you see, it was one thing recovering stolen art and people getting paid, which is illegal. But in these 2 art thefts, Arthur Brand conspired to steal them in the first place with the very intention of doing what he has done.
Wait, hold on a second. Wait, Turbo Paul, you're saying that if anybody who recovered this art were to admit that the thieves were compensated for the return of that art, that would be illegal?
Of course it would.
So that's why they have to come up with these convoluted stories.
Yes, these complete and utter fabrications.
That's interesting.
But what we got to remember, I mean, if he'd have tried it in the US, right, and he'd have just telephoned the local police of where an artwork worth $10 million was stolen, and said, oh, someone just left it on my doorstep, right? Well, he'd be under arrest. Of course he would. They'd say, who? Where? When? And if he's claiming that the Dutch police were informed about everything, so why wasn't there surveillance on his house then when it was delivered? No, this is Arthur Brand works with the police up to a point, and then he goes off right, on his own, recovers it, and at the end of the day, the police have got to go, well, what can we do? He's already recovered it. There's nothing we can do. And the deal that Arthur Brand has with the insurance company is a secret kind of deal where millions of dollars goes into accounts, and then when it's recovered, that millions of dollars then goes into different places, and it's going to be a nest egg for the drug kingpin Peter Roycock and Niles Manara the thief, and Arthur Brand, Octave Durham and Michel Van Ryn, and maybe even an ex-Scotland Yard cop who works for the insurance companies, Dick Ellis, as well. Now, you can't buy back stolen art. I mean, in America, right, the ironic thing is in America we got the greatest art theft unsolved, the Gardner art heist. Right. Now, in that case, the authorities are saying we want to have a deal and we will pay the reward, but they are lying because they want to arrest people, right, and charge them an indictment, and the reward and immunity is fake unless you want to testify. So in the US, they're saying we're going to have a deal, right, but it's a trap. In Europe, in the Netherlands, they publicly said, the police and the government said, no, we will never have a deal on the Van Gogh and the Frans Hals. And yet the opposite has happened because Arthur Brand has just said, I woke up in the morning and the Van Gogh's at the bottom of my bed. I mean, who bought it for him? The Tooth Fairy?
Now, also, too, Arthur Brand, he's not doing this in the dark. He actually has a TV show where he presents all this to the world.
Yes, but he presents complete fabrications, right, about how he recovers stuff. It's just a case of criminals knocking on his door and going, here it is, and then he hangs it back and then says, I had to drive and behind the tree and we got over the wall and there was a bag and I found it. No, he didn't. Even in this case, though, he at least admits that someone came with an IKEA bag with a $10 million Van Gogh and gave it to him. I mean, to be honest with you, how do we know, Ed, he's storing the Van Gogh for the last 2 years in his wardrobe?
You're absolutely right. Arthur Brand, if I were to call the police right now and say, hey, look, I just discovered this stolen whatever car, this stolen TV set on my front porch, this crime's called, in possession of stolen property, that you could easily be charged with. If you come up with a good story, maybe you can win in court, but most people would get arrested on site in possession of stolen property. So you have to...
Especially if they knew you were getting 20% of the value from the insurance company.
Yeah. Very interesting. Now, is this TV show, is it a popular show? Well,
no, it's just one of those sort of things in the Netherlands. It's all in Dutch.
Yeah.
Right, but he's done 2 seasons, and there's about a dozen stolen art recoveries which were nothing more than illegal buybacks. That's all he's been doing, going to the criminal underworld saying, I can buy stolen art off of you, hand it back and you'll get loads of money, sometimes millions of dollars. Well, that's highly illegal, and it encourages further art theft.
Fascinating stuff, Paul. Fascinating stuff, man. And
well, and to be honest, watch this space. We've seen the Van Gogh recovered. If the deal is honoured that was made, we will see the Van Gogh recovered right within the next 10 days. If the deal has not been honoured, right, the Van Gogh won't come back.
But either way, Mr. Koch's not getting out of jail, though, right? Mr. Koch, he's not getting out of jail.
Sorry?
Mr. Koch,
No, well, we don't know, you see. We don't know. It's only been recovered 2 days. At the moment, he was doing 12 years. That might be reduced to 8. We don't know. He might be sent to a more open prison conditions, a metaphorical softer pillow for him to rest his head, his weary head. Right, Niles Manara, the original art thief, is doing 8 years, right? Well, he'll be out in about 4 years, but the money that's generated from these paintings being recovered will be put aside for when both the drug kingpin and when the original thief, Niles Manara, get released from jail. But it's a racket. And the thing is, though, Ed, is all the people in the establishment know it's a racket. It was tried twice in 2020, and the Minister of Justice went, no, we're being played like a $2 banjo. Yet 3 years later, it miraculously appears. So, as I say, the authorities could be playing the long game, and when they get their hands on the second stolen painting, right, they might swoop and go, right, now we're going to arrest all of you lot.
Yeah, that doesn't seem likely to me. It seems like some kind of there's some kind of prior arrangements going into all this. I don't think people are going into this thing blind. And now, you mentioned that again. This dealer, Mr. Koch, was in there, and he laid out about $500,000 cash, as you said, or $1 million cash.
No, it was 1 million euros. So whatever that transfers into American dollars. He paid 400,000 euros for the stolen Van Gogh, and he paid 600,000 euros for the stolen Frans Hals.
Then, in comparison to what the insurance company is laying out for that, how much are they laying out? Like, what's the difference in the monetary amounts?
Right. Well, the insurance company, right, paid out between $25 and $30 million on the 2 paintings. On the Van Gogh, they paid out $10 million, and it's now recovered, so they're going to get $10 million back. So Arthur Brand's got his hand out for the usual amount that art detectives get is 20% of the value, $2 million. So then Arthur Brand gets $2 million. He then cuts it up and gives some to Peter.
Yeah.
He gives him his original 400,000 euros he paid. So that means there's 1.6 million euros to divide up between the 4 of them. So they all get 400,000 each. But Peter Koch, the drug kingpin, gets his original outlay of 400,000. Niles Manara, the thief, he'll get 400,000 euros when he gets out. Arthur Brand gets 400,000 euros, and Octave Durham gets 400,000 euros. So all the thieves, all those conspired, get 400,000 euros each.
Is it confirmed that Peter Koch laid out this 400,000?
100%. It even appeared in the news, on the TV, in all kinds of media. That exact figure. I revealed it about 3 months before anyone knew or anyone released it. That's why Arthur Brand has attacked me relentlessly. Attacked my family, right? Attacked me in the media, attacked me on social media, tried to get my YouTube channel closed down and shut down because they want to try to silence my voice. But Ed, right, you are my witness. We had this conversation 2 years ago, 3 years ago, about how that Van Gogh was stolen and how it would eventually be recovered. And it has come, right, to fruition exactly as I say. You know, you can bear my witness on this. You heard me on your previous show say the same thing.
Well, it's on tape. I can't deny it, Arthur. I can't deny, not Arthur, right? Yeah, Art Hostage. I can't deny it, what you're saying there, because it is recorded.
Everything, every single step of this recovery, I predicted 3 years ago, right, 2 years ago with Ed, and how it was going to go down, but they have to let it go quiet now, right? You know, public opinion and all that carry on. But to be honest with you, it's just going to encourage further art theft.
Yeah, it's, and Turbo Paul, is anybody else screaming about this, man? It seems like, are you the only one?
No, yeah, well, at the moment, right, he recovered it and it hit the news yesterday.
Okay.
Right, so literally he's got the stage at the moment, so he can put out his narrative and everyone's got to be on board with it. He's the hero. I'll tell you what Arthur Brand is like, Ed. He's like the person who sets light to a building, calls the fire brigade and then goes there and watches the fire brigade trying to put the fire out. What do they call them people?
Arsonists. Pyromaniacs.
Right, and there is a condition, isn't there, where the people get attracted to setting light a fire, calling the fire service, right, and they come and they get some kind of thrill out of doing it. Well, Arthur Brand's the same. He's stolen and conspired to steal these two paintings worth $30 million, and he is going to recover them and get paid for them. It's, you know, it's like having a car window recovery business in the daytime, and at night time you go around smashing everyone's windscreens.
Yeah. Or like with the pyromaniac analogy, if the same guy was an insurance salesman selling fire insurance out there, and getting a commission on the insurances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly. It really is. I mean, but you know, where does it end? But the distinction is that we've got it on tape 2 years ago of me saying this is how it will be recovered. This is the history of Arthur Brand. He's been doing this for over a decade with regards to artworks worth multi-millions, but to take it one step further, in this case, he actually organised the theft and has organised the recovery.
And there's no one in law enforcement or in the insurance industry that says, "Hey, you know, Paul, can you tell us how this works? You know, can you testify for us? Can we?"
Well, they know. Well, I mean, they know. Yeah. The trouble is, right, is that, you know, law enforcement, especially in the Netherlands, are very busy with more serious things and don't take this seriously. And Arthur Brand has got a relationship with the chief Dutch art cop, Richard Brunswick, so he can look the other way and do this and bend the rules and all that stuff. But all it is, there are a lot of very powerful people, Ed, in the Netherlands who are not going to be very happy at the circumstances of this recovery.
Do any of these cops in the Netherlands, do they appear on the TV show?
I think the current guy, Richard Brunswick, had been in one of the previous series, when he was the number 2. He's now the number 1. So I'd imagine, yes, of course he will. Because now, no doubt, Arthur Brand, because he films everything, that they will film a version of events, right, which won't be the truth about recovering the Van Gogh and will be part of an episode. And they'll probably have Richard Brunswick, the top Dutch art cop. Unless, of course, there is some courageous law enforcement out there, and when the second painting is handed back, right, the walls come tumbling down and they say, right, you lot, you bunch of degenerates, we're not standing for this anymore. Because if they don't, it encourages other violent gang members to go to museums and steal works of art worth millions.
Yeah, when you're throwing these numbers around, 25 million, 30 million, yeah. Now what about, now you're predicting in 10 days that this other work of art is going to appear? No, what do you base that on?
10 days, right? What we now, Wednesday, right? It might even appear by next Monday, Tuesday, right? No, Arthur Brand and milk this for the next week, but within the next week or 10 days, if the original deal on this Van Gogh has been honoured, right, you will see the Franz holes mysteriously appear and Arthur Brand do the same thing again. I'm telling you, it really is. It beggars belief. It does.
Well, here we have, Turbo Paul, the art hostage. He's making this prediction. If he's correct, he could open up the greatest psychic hotline out there. Or people could finally say, hey, man, maybe this guy's onto something here. And, 25 million here, 30 million there. After a while, it's starting to become serious money. Now, you can check out Mr. Art Hostage here, Turbo Paul, on YouTube. Okay, and he's on there almost every single night, so you really want to check this out. It's Art Hostage, and then it's Art Hostage 8586 is one of the YouTube names there. You go there and check out all his shows, many shows, over 1 million views, very popular show. It's these round tables with all guys in the know. You can find him on Instagram there too, again, at Art Hostage Turbo Paul on Instagram, and on Twitter at Art Hostage. You could find him there. And pretty soon, the Art Hostage Psychic Hotline. You could dial 1-800 Art Hostage, and you get all your predictions from Mr. Turbo Paul. Paul, another prediction you made on this show, Hitler's horse, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, this one, right, is tinged with great sadness because of the connotations. I mean, me personally, I'm half Jewish, so it really hurts. But to be honest with you, I'll give you the story. There were 2 bronze horses that were commissioned by Adolf Hitler in the 1930s off of his favourite sculptor, Joseph Thorak. And they were like these 20-foot solid bronze horses that weighed many tons each. And he had them placed at each end of the Chancery in Berlin. One was outside his office. When the Allies were closing in on Berlin, right, the horses were moved. After the Second World War, they were housed on a Russian military base in East Germany. In 1989, the guards on the base, right, were bribed by 2 neo-Nazi fanatics, Rainer Wolf and Herr Flick, and they cut up the bronze horses, smuggled them across to West Germany, and re-welded them together. And Rainer Wolf and Herr Flick were multi-millionaires who were fanatical about the Third Reich, and each of them had a warehouse-size hangar full of Nazi memorabilia, tiger tanks, guns, uniforms, medals, these huge Hitler's horses, all kinds of stuff. The neo-Nazis wanted to get the Führer's favourite horses back on public display so that neo-Nazis could go and pay tribute to them as a shrine. And in comes Arthur Brand and Michel van Rijn. So they concoct a plan to recover the horses that will end up going on public display. So they were recovered in 2015 with a load of other stuff. It went through the courts, and the German government made a deal that if the German nation can own the horses, they would allow Herr Flick and Rainer Wolf to keep all the other Nazi memorabilia worth about 40-50 million. So they had that deal. The horses were then kept in storage since 2015. They were transported to the Citadel Museum in Spandau, Berlin, and special reinforced floors have been made for them, and now they are on public display. Shame on them. And already we've seen neo-Nazis go in there to pay homage to Hitler's horses. I cannot believe it. It is heartbreaking.
And you're saying that there was a whole other trove of Nazi art too as well?
Oh, well, no, there was other sculptures, 20 foot tall. There was, things like military uniforms. It came to about $40 to $50 million worth of Third Reich Nazi memorabilia. And they were allowed to keep that, and so they've sold a lot of it on the open market since. These 2 horses, right, honestly, right, they symbolise Nazism, right, more than absolutely anything. And, you know, it's heartbreaking to see that. And do you know what is even worse? Because Arthur Brand has fed a story that is complete and utter fabrication, and he wrote a book called Hitler's Horses and how we recovered them and all this carry on, and it was completely fabricated because, again, he was part of the conspiracy to get Hitler's horses on public display. What he's done, he signed a film contract with MGM, and they're going to make a movie called Hitler's Horses when it's not true. I mean, there should be outrage, not least in the Jewish community, for goodness sake. We've got Hitler's Horses, 20 foot high, public display in Berlin. And you've got neo-Nazis going there and using it as a shrine.
Is there something here about that these horses were vandalized too as well?
No, yeah, well, what happened in 1989, right, they were cut up.
Right.
And then they were smuggled into West Germany, right, and then re-welded together, the body and everything, like the head and the neck and that went in one bit, and they were cut up into a few pieces, but welded together all professionally. You can't even tell. If you look at them, you couldn't tell that they'd been... But, I mean, it's just the symbolism of them. It's so revolting, it's unbelievable. You've only got to look at the press, the way they present them. As the Führer's favourite horses. The proof of the pudding's in the eating. Already, neo-Nazis are flocking to the Spandau Citadel Museum, Berlin, to pay homage to the Third Reich via these bronze horses.
Yeah, that's pretty outrageous, Paul. Now, the individuals involved with the theft of all this, you've identified them all too as well?
With regards to horses?
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, what they did is when they busted the neo-Nazis who had the horses along with their hangar-sized warehouses full of other Nazi memorabilia, everything got seized. Then the government had a deal with them last year, or in 2021, that if the government keeps the horses, they can keep all the rest of the military memorabilia. So they give all the memorabilia back to them, and the government kept the horses. Now they're on public display, which was the intention of the neo-Nazis of today from the beginning, because previously they could only go and see them when they were hidden in these hangar-sized warehouses. Now they're on public display every day of the week, so they can goose step up and down. They can put the kids on the back of them. They could even drape the swastika in them and all that. Honestly, the government have been played like a $2 banjo here.
And these neo-Nazis were rewarded. They didn't suffer any kind of consequences for being in possession of stolen horses?
No, none of them. The deal was they get back all of their memorabilia. The government keep the horses. The memorabilia they were given back is worth $40 to $50 million.
I tell you, it seems like this stolen art is the business to be in, man. It's like this.
Well, I mean, no, excuse me, not in the United States of America or the UK. There's no way, because no one would get away with doing that. Although, having said that, Arthur Brand has recovered stolen property in the UK and smuggled it out to the Netherlands before he handed it back, again breaking laws. So, yes, it's a grey area, Ed, and no one really wants to get involved. But what we're talking about here are things worth not only millions of dollars, but with huge historical significance, right, that's going to cause a lot of pain and heartache, right? Mark my words, there will be an incident at the museum with these Hitler's horses. You'll see it on social media with young neo-Nazis, you know, standing next to the horses, having their photograph done. I promise you, it's going to cause a lot of pain.
Well, hopefully we'll have some Antifa go in there and do some damage to these Nazi horses. Mr. Art Hostage, Turbo Paul, you often come here. The other one you're always talking about is the Gardner Museum. Anything new going on with that?
No, it's a simple fact. They are starting to try to now move again to my suggestion of a decade ago is to introduce a Gardner Art reward price list, because 13 pieces taken, there needs to be an individual reward for each bit, because the likelihood that all 13 bits are together is millions to one. So if someone's got a drawing, there's 50,000. If someone's got a little painting, the Manet, there's $500,000. If someone's got the Vermeer, it's 5 million. If someone's got the Rembrandt, it's 2 million, or something like that. And that might flush out some of the art. And there is movement. Anthony Amore has indicated there might be an individual reward, but he won't say it in public. And no one will move until they do things in public, because they don't trust the FBI and Anthony Amore and the Gardening Museum, because, right, they have, you know, people have stepped forward before and just had their lives dismantled, as we spoke about before. You know, Robert Gentile, Billy Youngworth, you know, whether they could have recovered any or not is irrelevant. They had their lives destroyed when they said that they maybe could help.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's another one we should be keeping our eye on. Now, you also talk about the organized crime and drug dealers and stuff like that, smugglers. Anything else you're working on?
Well, yes, there's a huge cartel in Dubai, the Kinahan cartel. They're Irish guys. Multi-billion-dollar a year cartel, which is about to collapse. Right, America was involved because in 2019 they found a ship in Philadelphia Harbour on its way to Europe with 17 tons of white, you know, the powdered white stuff.
Right, is that the J.P. Morgan ship?
In Philadelphia Harbour, yes, 17 tons. But hang on a minute, what they don't tell you is that two ships with the same amount had got through in the months before. And someone's been arrested, an ex-boxer called Gogh. He was arrested in Miami with regards to that load. But that was the Kinahan's load. And there's going to be huge arrests coming, right, very, very shortly. Again, you can look out on that, on the drug cartels, and we're seeing a changing of the guard in the European drug cartels.
Yeah, it says 35,000 pounds of cocaine were found in this Philadelphia
2019, I think it was, or 17. It was 17 tons.
Right.
In Philadelphia, and they arrested an ex-heavyweight boxer from the Balkans called Gorčić in Miami. He's still in custody.
Yeah, it says that the ship, as it turns out, is owned by a fund run by banking giant J.P. Morgan Chase.
There you go.
Yeah, J.P. Morgan Chase, the same ones who just came under scrutiny for their laundering the Jeffrey Epstein payoffs, okay? But J.P. Morgan Chase runs the United States EBT food stamp program. They get a percentage. Every time a hungry kid in this country gets buy some food using their food stamps, their EBT card, J.P. Morgan Chase gets a percentage of that money.
That is what you call, Ed, the unacceptable face of capitalism.
Yeah, man, you think so, right? Yeah, you think so, man. Think someone would put their foot down and say, wait a second, you know? Coke dealing, human trafficking, and they're also getting a cut right off the top of the entire food stamp budget without any kind of scrutiny whatsoever that anybody's even... You think if they're going to do all these other crimes, so you think maybe they might be skimming some food stamp money? Possibility? I think it's possible.
All I could say is that nothing would surprise me at this point. Nothing. Nothing would surprise me. Honestly, sadly, Western society, right, has gone down the Johnny Flusher, and we're all now down in the sewer. No morals, no ethics, no norms, no nothing. All there is, right, is depravity and perversion. And we're all swimming to try and get away from it all. And those that try to stand up, right, and say, hang on a minute, this is not correct, right, are cancelled and immediately called a phobic or an ism or something like that.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, and I've had many of my YouTube channels shut down just for the content on my show here. Now, what about Turbo Paul? You're on top of the art theft world, these drug smuggling cartels. What about human trafficking rings? Do you see any of that in any overlap?
To be honest with you, Ed, I really haven't got enough time to cover what I cover today now without trying to include anything more. But I know that it goes on, and it's the most shameful, heartbreaking, illegal industry, right, that you can imagine. But to be honest, I mean, I try to focus on stolen art crime, the drug cartels in Europe and Asia, not really to do with South America or the United States of America. That's a completely separate subject. I tend to look at the European, Middle East and down into Australia. Kind of cartels, drug cartels and organised crime groups, and so that's what I do there. In particular, last year we saw 5 murders of 5 innocent people within 5 months, and the trials of those people are coming up. And I was the first person to name. Well, on 2 of the cases, I named the people that have been convicted this year. Thomas Cashman, who was convicted of murdering a 9-year-old child, Olivia Pratt-Corbell, and Connor Chapman, who was convicted of murdering Ellie Edwards. Right, it was gun-related violence, and I was the first person to name those people and hound them until they got charged. And then I stood back. We had the court case, they were both convicted, and then we spoke about it afterwards. But there's 3 more cases, hopefully, that need to be solved.
But you never hear those stories about, because you hear about the art transport business and transporting living art, and they have special exemptions for with customs and stuff like that. Have you ever heard those kind of stories?
Of course.
Yeah.
Stolen art. I mean, we had something in Europe called the Pink Panthers, ex-Serbian paratroopers and special forces that have robbed over 200 high-value jewellers in Europe. And what they would do is they would go in and be in and out in 2 minutes, military precision, and all the jewels they steal would be taken to the Serbian embassy and put into diplomatic pouches and flown straight out the country. Whereas the host country like France didn't even have an option. They can't, because diplomatic pouches are never ever looked into. So and that came to about $500 million. So yes, I mean, there are people that are corrupt. Corruption, you see, power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts ultimately. And sadly, everything is up for sale, as we see in the headlines every day.
It's so true. Before we say goodbye to our friend here, Turbo Paul, the art hostage, just want to remind everybody about this GoFundMe. Our friend Brad Schreiber, who wrote the book Revolution's End about the Patty Hearst kidnapping, several other books about Jimi Hendrix. I'm going to do a whole day's tribute of all the repeats we've done with Brad Schreiber. Lung cancer. He was in the hospital for 3 months. He's out now, but he needs home care. He needs medications. And, the health care in the United States here is abysmal. So the GoFundMe is Help Brad Beat Cancer. Help Brad Beat Cancer. You can find, and it's run by his sister, Robin Martinelli. He's the organizer. So you could find that there, and also get a hold of me. It'll be, if you need the link, I'll give it to you. It's on my Facebook. It's on my Twitter. And we'll have it in the subject line in the description of this here broadcast as well. But we've been talking to our friend Art Hostage, man, the Turbo Paul. Now, you can find him on Twitter at Art Hostage. You can find him on YouTube, Art Hostage. He broadcasts every night. The guy's the hardest working person in art theft. And also Art Hostage, Turbo Paul on Instagram. Anywhere else we could find you or anything else going on there, Mr. Turbo Paul?
Well, I think with that is enough social media for me to be carrying on with.
Yeah, I mean, especially since you just got started just a few short years ago, right?
Well, 18 months. In 18 months, everyone, I've got 855 episodes on my YouTube channel. That is nearly 2 a day over 18 months. 855 episodes.
and over a million views. So it's a very, very popular show. Check this out. And he has guests on, too. They have roundtables, all kind of stuff, too, at the Art Hostage YouTube channel. Mr. Turbo Paul, thank you so much. You're always ahead of the game. We got you on recording here 2 years ago, right? Predicting all this. Turbo Paul's Psychic Hotline coming up. And we're going to look in 2 weeks, he's predicting again that this other piece of art, this other Van Gogh is going to turn up. And it's going to be the same pattern we've seen in the past. Turbo Paul, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you very much, Ed, for having me.
Good night.